Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. It's good to be back with you, and I'm here today with almost all the fellows. We got Pete Mohan, Eric Pond, and Pete Worth on the line with us today. How you doing, fellas?
Hola, doing great.
Surprise, surprise, it would not be the Real Chili Podcast if we didn't start off by hazing Brian Henry.
For missing the first pot of the season.
Brian, good luck with your D-bags in the playoffs, but we won't miss you tonight. But we will miss you coming up in the future.
Amen.
Amen.
We are here today because we are a week out from the start of the Marquette basketball season. Marquette Madness starts in just about a week on Friday, October 6th. That's the kickoff to the Marquette basketball season. And what we're here to do today is we're going to walk through the roster. We're going to hit the highlights towards the end of last year and see what we think the roster that we have this year is going to deliver for us throughout the course of the season. Are we going to make it to the Big East tournament? Sure as hell hope so. Are we going to make it to the NCAA tournament? And when we get there, if we get there, what's that going to look like?
Did you say you hope we make it to the Big East tournament?
I hope we do too.
I hope we do too.
Unless an indictment comes down soon, you know.
Right.
Judging by Wojo's liked tweet today, I think that's not likely.
So Marquette finished 10-8 in the Big East last season. We finished 19-11 in the regular season. The lowlights of the season were a drubbing by the University of Michigan. We lost to St. John's and Georgetown on the road. And we really exhibited a failure to perform in elimination play. So in the Big East tournament, in the NCAA tournament. Highlights.
Failure to launch.
Great movie. Highlights, Markus Howard was an offensive phenom as a freshman. We really developed an offensive identity. And, of course, we had a huge win over Villanova. And we made it to the NCAA tournament. Now, if you listen to one of our later pods that recapped last season, it was overwhelmingly positive and viewed as a step forward. So we're here today to look at the roster and figure out how we take a step forward this season to a bigger stage. Key thing you should know, 4 major players from last year's team are off the roster. Juwan Johnson, Luke Fisher, Caton Reinhardt, and Dwayne Wilson. And Eric, that is a lot of production, a lot of upper-class production to be replacing in a year.
Yeah, Mike, it absolutely is. You know, as you said, we won 10 Big East games behind one of the top offenses in the country, really, but we're going into next year without 3 double-digit scorers from this past year's squad. Juwan played 4 years at Marquette, as we all know. He certainly had his peaks and valleys, you know, in a Marquette uniform, but I think it's pretty clear that his performance ultimately improved each year. Last year, he averaged 12, 4.1 rebounds, and 2.7 assists, and 1.9 steals, which is good enough actually to lead the team in assists and steals. That's a lot to replace in and of itself. Luke, we all have our opinions on Luke Fisher, but he did average double digits last year, 10.9 points, 5.9 boards, 1.7 blocks, and he actually historically was, if you look at the stats, a pretty great Marquette player. He graduated as the second player in school history with 1,000 points,
wow,
500 boards, and 150 blocks.
And an outlier just for us to have a talented big man with any offensive skill set.
Right, but not an outlier for us to have a talented big man who is soft as hell most of the time.
Right.
Strong words.
We do have to give him props. He did have the wisdom to leave a Tom Crean program.
That's fair. And who can forget his memorable, I think, on-court proposal? That's pretty
that's
big.
True.
That might have been history for the program, too.
My favorite moment of last year.
Yeah, you wrote a song about it.
That's right, yeah.
No, not of the proposal. That was a different proposal than that. It was a couple of it was
right. Our troops.
Right.
It was a modest proposal.
It was an indecent proposal.
Anyway, I'm not going to touch on Wilson, but last but not least is Caton, who averaged 10.8 points, 2.7 boards, and 2.1 assists in his only season at Marquette as a grad transfer. I think the bottom line is all these guys averaged double digits last season, and that's a lot of production to replace anywhere in any program. But I don't think any of them were ever the best player on the team at any point in the year last year. Aside from, you can make the case maybe Caton with some of those big shots, big moments he showed up in, crunch time, performance kind of things. But really...
And Jawan had some big moments, where he carried the team at times.
He did. Some of his transition play, some of his steals, creating momentum the other direction. I think Jawan, that's going to be sorely missed. But at Mike, as he kicked it off and said, like Marcus and Sam and, Rowsey, really, a lot of the gears and the main cogs to one of the nation's best offenses that's still in place.
So, that brings us to what we are returning. From an efficiency standpoint, actually, when you take out the players last year, when you take those guys out, our fourth in the nation, 57.5% effective field goal percentage, with the guys remaining have a weighted average of 61.3%, so 4% higher. So actually our shooting, by getting rid of these guys, getting rid of them moving on, our efficiency is actually improved. So I think that says a lot about the talent, the shooting talent that we've still retained and cultivate. I mean, we still haven't mentioned Hauser yet. If Markus Howard wasn't a freshman last year, we'd be talking about Hauser as an offensive phenom. The guy had an incredible freshman year. There's still a lot that's returning, but the front court is going to be a complete overhaul. We lose all but 5% of our minutes at the small forward position, 35% of our minutes at the power forward, and 52% of our minutes at the center position. So that's a lot. We're going to have consistency in the backcourt with Howard and Rowsey leading that, and Cheatham hopefully steps up into a more veteran position. But that front court is a completely different look from the last year, and really from the last few seasons.
And that's one of the big questions we're going to get to today, and one of the big questions for the season.
I think it's the main question for the season. I mean, we were shallow in the front court last season, even with Luke Fisher. When Luke Fisher got in foul trouble, which is most every game, Matt Heldt had to step in, and then we had that stretch kind of like in the middle of the season when it was kind of gut check time coming down the stretch, and Wojo inserted that lineup of Heldt. Who else did he throw in there? Maybe Rowsey, I think.
Yep.
And that kind of stirred things up, and we got a couple wins under our belt, and
Dwayne Wilson, I think, started as well.
Yeah, it was Dwayne as well. Yep.
Right, and that kind of...
but Heldt was solid as a rock.
He threw around some helter-skelter all over the court last year. That is without doubt. But now that Luke is gone and Caton's gone, who was one of our taller players, even though he wasn't really a front court player, Sam Hauser's our leading returning rebounder at 5 a game. And Hauser obviously needs to put on a little weight to be in a prominent front court Big East player. That is going to be the main question of the season. Can we hold our own in the paint? It's really going to come up to, I'll segue into some of our new guys, Theo John and possibly Harry Froling.
One other thing, too, that we maybe lamented throughout the season is Caton's isolation plays and how often, he would get the ball in that position. But when you look at the guys that are returning, Howard, Rowsey, Cheatham, Hauser, and Heldt, if Howard and Rowsey are being, pestered in the backcourt by long guards on defense, who's our isolation guy?
Yeah.
That's not something that exists in Cheatham's game.
Right.
That's not. Maybe you dump it down to Heldt and he throws up, a 3-foot prayer or something, but that's not any isolation offense, and maybe we will actually end up missing that from Caton.
You mentioned that our effective field goal should actually improve that field goal percentage, so overall Marquette should be better. But that immediately leads you into questions. Well, you don't have people like Caton or people like Luke on the court to space things out and to draw attention away, so you just have Marcus and Howard at the 1 and the 2, and they're diminutive And can they be locked?
Marcus and Rowsey, so they can be locked down more easily. So, folks, as we get into talking about some of the returning players, it's not just about their skill set. It's about how these pieces fit together, and whether they how Wojo can get them to complement each other so that they're a challenge for other teams to cover. So let's start walking through the roster with Markus Howard. Markus Howard, you just heard some of the stats. He's a sophomore this year from Arizona. Had a phenomenal year last year.
Only 17 years old.
Oh, still 17. Get this, he led the country
in 3-point parties.
In three-point parties.
54.7%, folks.
That's fake news.
Get on your feet.
54.7%. 82 of 150. Beyond that, at a lot of points in the season, Marcus showed, at least to me, he showed that extra gear, that kind of want to, that you would expect, that you would hope for from a leader from a point guard position. Can't say enough good things about him there. He shows the ability to get to the rim. I mean, it's hard to find a bad thing to say about his offensive skill set that doesn't have to do with the fact that he's just a little short. Given how tall he is, he's listed at 5'11". He's probably a little bit shorter than that. But he has this tremendous ability to finish at the rim. And you look at a player in the NBA like Kyrie Irving or like Isaiah Thomas, they're not tall guys, but they can get the ball to do what they want to around the rim or around the hoop, and they can finish without getting blocked. And that is something that sets Markus Howard apart from just anyone who can shoot threes. Yes, he can do it really well, but despite his size, he can be physical and he can finish in the lane above tall players. And that is something that is a pain in the ass for other teams to have to deal with. So it's using both of those things in his game that really brings him to a different level.
And I'm sure he's going to get better and better at like the floater and the free throw line pull up and things like that, because when big men start to slough back and wait for him there, he's going to have all these other shots in his trick book. So I'm looking forward to the progression of his game and the way that other teams have scouted him in the offseason and how they attack him, and see what kind of counterattacks he has ready for us.
The thing I liked most about Marcus's season was that it seemed like right from the get-go he kind of established himself as a leader of the team. And when he had a good game, like, the team rallied around him. And especially in crunch time, the last 5 minutes of games, yeah, he struggled at times, and he struggled with some turnovers when other teams were full court pressing or whatever. But he never really let that get to him. And he had some huge moments down the stretch of some big wins that enabled us to get to the NCAA tournament. I mean, along with his shooting, obviously, but like that was what really kind of set him apart in my mind.
No fear.
So we know Marcus's offensive skill set. Neighbor, you just mentioned one of the things that he was prone to do on the negative side. He's prone to turnovers when he gets pressured by lengthy guards who can be physical with him. I think we saw that in the South Carolina game in the tournament. Was this in the Villanova game where we got the win? There was some big game where Marcus...
I want to say Wisconsin.
But there was some, I think later in the year where Marcus was on the bench for most of the second half. Not necessarily because of fouls, just because that might have been the Villanova game. We'd have to go back and look at it. So, look, he's not without flaws. It's just going to be really what he's put into his game over the summer to adapt to some of those things that teams are going to throw at him. And on the flip side, what teams are actually going to be able to throw at him when you have length like St. John's or other teams.
Or South Carolina.
So there are negatives to Markus Howard.
Well, when you look at the backcourt as a whole, you have to think about how this rotation is going to work. And last year, at least a third of the minutes that we played throughout the year included a lineup with Howard and Rowsey on the court at the same time. I don't want to gloss over Andrew Rowsey's talents, because he's a lot of the things that we just said about Markus Howard we could say about Andrew Rowsey in terms of his offensive abilities. I mean, the guy is a lights-out shooter. Last year, he shot 44.7% from three. So, I mean, the guy is a deadeye, and he can do other things on off. He's not the finisher that Marcus is, but when you pair those guys together for that length of time and they're going to have to play, together at some point because there's 40 minutes in a game, and there's no way those guys aren't each getting 25 minutes a game. So
right.
That's 50 minutes between them. That's at least 10 minutes together.
Right. That's no matter how well the freshmen do.
Right. No matter what, these guys are going to spend time on the court together. So it's a dangerous situation on the defensive end, and I'm sure Wojo's going to be playing matchups and things like that and picking his spots, but it's still a major liability going forward if we have to rely on those guys both to be offensive catalysts. We'll also have to live with the defensive consequences of running out 2 5'10" guys.
Neighbor, I remember at some point last year you saying that you were the same height as Andrew Rowsey. So I want to bring you in. What's your analysis of Andrew Rowsey? What do you think? What do you think he looks like this year?
How high does the rim look from down there?
Well, we had some very similar games overall. Just absolute chuckers. So that was me in my day. I didn't really have the toughness that Rowsey did. If I was struggling,
you'd cry
for most of the game. I would just get down on my knees and start to weep.
We've got video. We'll post it.
Andrew, the C League intramural championship game. You can see.
Wait, wasn't it B League? I thought we were B League.
That's what we told you to make you feel good about yourself, Mike.
Yeah. No, but Rowsey is tough as hell, man. Like, there were so many times where not only when he was making threes, but he would kind of energize the team with a big and one or something in the paint, and especially with his size, if he goes down to the paint and scores on a big man and gets a foul, that energizes the team. But obviously he's got his liabilities on defense, but he was exactly as he was billed when he was coming in.
Absolutely.
And provided exactly what we needed last year. Yeah, he's short. I mean, ain't nothing gonna change about that. But he showed more athletic ability and more offensive versatility than I had pictured coming in. And so, I mean...
Are we a better team if he's our sixth man and we can get shooting guard minutes from Cheatham or Elliot coming in?
Oh, I think absolutely, yeah. Because, I mean, he's a specialist.
You also need a driver of your offense to come off the bench to lead that second unit. Like, that's, not even the second unit, but just to come in and re-energize the crew and have that spark reignited. Like, that to me, that's like NBA-style basketball to some degree, where you have that sixth man on the bench to come in and he's your ringer. And 92.6% from the free throw line is nothing to sneeze at from your sixth man. That's
I
absurd.
forgot about that.
Right.
I mean, just to play devil's advocate here, that would be really nice, but as we just described, we're in a situation where who's behind Andrew Rowsey, right? Like, these are unproven guys, particularly the freshmen that are coming in. We'll talk about them. Jamal Cain, Greg Elliot would probably fit more at the 2 spot. But that's a perfect world scenario to have Rowsey coming off the bench. I think he has a little bit more. I think I would give him a little bit more credit than just the specialist, because I think he does have some ability to share the ball and to run the offense. Not to the level of Markus Howard. I just think we're going to be in a tough position.
That's what brings us to the most, in my opinion, the biggest wild card to our team this year, and that would be the one and only, the mercurial Haanif Cheatham, because his freshman
great transition.
His freshman year, we were talking about him like, the way that we talked about Hauser last year. It was a great freshman year for Haanif, and last year he just looked like he was going the way of the Cohen, and he was just like lost, and I don't know what it was.
His eyes started to turn a baby blue.
He just didn't have that
every game.
He just didn't seem comfortable in the flow of the offense like he did his freshman year.
Yeah, his freshman year he averaged 11.8 a game and regressed. I mean, he averaged something like 8 a game last year. And it's like at points it looked like he had the yips. Like, he was just not confident. He was psyched out. It was like sports psychology stuff to some degree, because we all know he has the skill set and the talent and the build to, be what we need on this team. We also need his defense. Like, he's a big player on this team that gives us the real needed depth if we can rely on him to be the Cheatham of his freshman year. But good Lord, I mean, regressing almost 3 points a game is absurd from your freshman year, sophomore year. That's not a good sign.
Is the sophomore slump a real thing? And should we be afraid for Sam and Marcus? Or is this a myth?
I would contribute a little bit, some of the slump, to the fact that he had JJJ and Caton in front of him, or at least in varying positions. Some of it was obviously the fact that, look, Haanif is talented, but has a limited skill set, or at least he did last year, and he couldn't find a way to fit in the lineup with Caton and JJJ, who kind of played similar roles on the team, even Dwayne Wilson in some spots. So those people are all gone. We mentioned this last year. Those people are all gone, so there's a natural opening for him, but it's still going to be about, can he add something more to his game? Can he add that 10-foot jumper that I don't really think he's demonstrated consistently? Because we know what his defense is, but for him it's about where does he fit on offense. And I don't know. I mean, maybe he put in a big summer and he's got a couple more tools.
I mean, he's still not great at defense. He's pretty good, but he's not great. He's the
that's true.
Quintessential tweener. He's not a great shooter. And where he really thrived his freshman year was getting to the basket and scoring down low in the paint, on drives and reverse layups and things like that. And I think Big East teams caught up to that pretty quickly, because if you look, I didn't go into the every box score or whatever from last year, but from what I recall, he succeeded pretty well in games against lesser competition and performed well. And then when it came to Big East competition and other quality opponents in the non-conference, he struggled. And I think because defense caught up to his game and he didn't really have a complement to that.
Just a quick thought that not great on defense would be a massive improvement over what we saw on defense last year, which was abysmal on defense.
So true.
So think about this. One more thing about Haanif is, because we have so many minutes going away at the small forward position, actually the 5% of minutes that we retain at the small forward position are from Haanif. Do we see, or do we need Haanif to play the 3 this year? Or do you think that his best fit on this team is as a 2? Or is that irrelevant in this offense, in your opinion?
I'd like to jump in here first. I know we haven't talked about new additions yet to the team, but
I mean that's where it should go.
I think that's where this is going. I feel like, Mohan, to your question, like, this is a team that's moving more and more to positionless basketball. Like, Brad Stevens talked about this in the offseason for the Celtics, but he said
switchables.
He said, I don't have 5 positions anymore. I have a ball handler, a wing, and a big, and that's it. Like, those are the positions he thinks about, and that's where the NBA is going as well. And you talk about added length in this freshman class, providing versatility on the team's roster that'll aid Wojo and the Golden Eagles in playing that style of positionless basketball. I think that's going to happen. Like, I think you see 3 guys coming in who are 6'7" to 6'9", huge long wings. I think they're going to try to,
these are some big Golden Eagles.
They're going to milk as much out of these big Golden Eagles as possible, and I think it seems like we're going to see a drift into that positionless scheme just based on recruiting and commitments we've seen this year.
So the question becomes then, can Haanif, with his experience in the system, it's been 2+ years, can he surpass that what you just described, Eric, at least for this year, until some of these freshmen can catch up, right? Or is he going to be immediately behind them because they are 6'9", 250. They are 6'7", 190. Or is he going to be able to use what he's learned over the past couple of years? And that's the big question with Haanif going forward. Hauser, a freshman last year. Mohan, you just mentioned it, had a freshman season similar to Haanif, right? Very solid, not perfect gold stars across the board. Came up with a huge shot that I just watched the highlights of in the Villanova game that I think tied the game or brought us within 3. Like, big huevos shot. His defense improved throughout the year. He doesn't have the best lateral quickness, but you could see throughout the year that he was communicating better on defensive swishes, pick and rolls. But he's got a nice shot, whether from 3, whether from mid-range. I think there's probably still some work to do finishing down low, but he's got a nice shot and he's confident.
This is the best thing that you can say about Sam Hauser. I mean, among other great things, but he's basically, in his freshman year, was the coach's best friend. He, among these other great shooters, he shot 45% himself, 30th in the nation. But he also was nationally ranked for his turnover rate in that he did not turn the ball over very much. So the guy was just, he was a rock. And to top all of this off,
did he do 5Ks with Wojo?
No, he did 50Ks. I mean, this guy was on fire. No, but seriously, he was our yeoman on the team. He played the highest percentage of minutes of anyone on the team, and he also played in every single game this year.
I'm glad you said that, Mohan. He led the team in minutes. That to me,
right.
as a
Iron Man Sam Hauser,
as a freshman, is ridiculous. And
he also, depending on how much you rely on Ken Palm, he led the team in offensive rating. He led the team in effective field goal. He led the team in turnover.
Turnover rate.
He was used in a fewer amount of possessions than all of these guys, so skewed a little bit. But he clear standout.
So advanced metrics love this guy, and as a freshman, that says a lot. He's
basically the next Gordon Hayward.
True freshman, started 28 games, led the team in minutes.
He's got the hair.
Sam has the hair. He's got the look. He could be Gordon Hayward.
He's got the flip.
He's got one thing Gordon doesn't have though, guys. He's got a brother.
Oh, that's right.
Do you know for sure that Gordon Hayward doesn't have a brother?
Let's wait. I think this is for a later date to drill into. But we love Sam.
Wait, but does Gordon Hayward actually have a brother?
Oh, he may actually. I don't know. Maybe his brother's a professional. He might be a professional video game player. I'm not sure, but he's certainly not a professional basketball athlete.
All right.
So Sam Hauser comes in at 6'6", 225, right? And we just spent some time talking about Haanif Cheatham, who's at 6'5", 190. So 6'5" and 6'6", these two guys. And these are the guys who had Hauser had a good year last year. Cheatham has shown the ability to put good stretches together. These are the guys who are going to be competing most directly with the freshmen that we have coming in. Now, no one knows what these freshmen are going to look like. We can make guesses, but you put them out there on the BMO Harris Bradley Center court, and that's a different game, right? So these are the guys who are going to be competing at the 3 spot, at the 4 spot, at the switchable position, and that battle is going to determine so much of the course of our season. So moving on from Sam Hauser, we've got the big man who stepped in the middle of the season and played some big minutes and put together some nice stretches, Matt Heldt. Neighbor, what do you think of Matt Heldt?
Well, Helter Skelter, as I like to call him, and his game was a little bit like that last year. Not really in the Charles Manson murder type of way, but just a kind of little up and down. Really surprised me because I didn't expect anything of him really last year. For his freshman year, he just looked scared, kind of deer in the headlights sort of thing. But he played some huge minutes last year, and he's really solid defensively down low in the post, which is crucial for this team, for him to provide that.
He should teach a course on the principle of verticality.
He's so vertical.
He's so vertical. He's so good vertical. At that.
So he is one of the best standers that I have seen
standard.
In a long time.
And refs respect him. Hey, I mean, not getting called for fouls is a big part of good defense. So you got to give him props there.
That's true. So, I mean, we're going to rely on him even more than we did last year, obviously, with Luke Fisher gone. And the big thing with him is, will his offensive skill set improve over the offseason? And will he be able to provide something more than kind of like some baby hooks or some cleanup rebounds, offensive putbacks, stuff like that.
And so Heldt obviously wasn't right. So the biggest area need for improvement from him is on offense, but that's not what we're asking him to do. So it's even minimal, even marginal improvement.
We'll see, yeah.
Defense and rebounding.
So even marginal improvement on offense would help, but he's going to be competing with Froling or whatever Froling ends up looking like for minutes down there at that spot.
And again, you talk about replacing Fisher's minutes. Offense is a critical component to that, or the offensive production, because Fisher did and had that. And if that's Froling and he's, scoring and putting up numbers and, can at least to some degree fill what Fisher filled, defense and rebounding, then he's, Froling may have the edge.
The only issue is that he's not going to be eligible for the first few games of this year. He won't be there for Maui.
That's true.
And is he ready for Wisconsin? I don't know the rule on that.
I don't think so.
I think it's December 11th.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So no Wisconsin. So
right.
But I think this is the perfect time to jump into these freshmen. And the first guy that I want to bring up in the discussion.
Can I just say one more thing about Matt Heldt?
Go on.
Just one quick thing. Not a guy who's going to knock you out with talent, but when he came into the lineup in the middle of the year and the team was down and they looked like shit and they were playing like shit, this kid played with grit and he played with heart
and hustle.
And hustle. And I don't care how much talent you have. If you go out there and play and try, that's telling me something. That's the kind of kid we want on our team. Dwayne Wilson had the same type of attitude. Let's add to the team. So
that's the kind of guy that's going to get minutes on a Wojo team.
Can I propose something really quick? Can we have real chilly shirts with Matt Heldt on the back but like t-shirts, but then we put blue collars on them because that is Matt fucking Heldt. Blue collar, gritty player. I'm team Matt Heldt for life. I think we all are.
Heldt. Let's have him say that.
Yep. I have a tattoo of his face on my back already.
Jeez. All right, so let's transition here to some of the freshmen here. Mohan, why don't you kick us off on the newcomers this year?
Well, since we're on the topic of Matt Heldt, I think that it's crucial to talk about who's going to take some of these minutes at the center position, and we added 4 freshmen this year. I'll just reel them off for you. Greg Elliot, he's a guard from Detroit. We also had 2 other guys from Detroit, Ike Eke and Jamal Cain, and then Theo John, who's from Minneapolis. Those 3 guys are all forwards. And then, as you mentioned, Froling, he's transferring in mid-season. So back to the center position. With Fisher gone, basically we have to replace half the minutes at the center position. And the guy I'd like to center this discussion in on is Theo John. Now, I don't know if you guys have all had a chance at looking at any of his highlights, but the first thing you notice about him is that he already has a Big East ready body. I mean, the guy is big. He's 6'9", 250 basically, which is a truck. He looks defined and he looks strong out there when granted he's playing against high school guys. The dude's already a man, and he's ready to come in, and he's ready to get rebounds, and he's ready to block shots. And honestly, he looks like a stronger, more assertive Luke Fisher. And I think that he plugs right into those minutes with Heldt. And honest to God, I think that he's going to start pushing Heldt for minutes at the center position. As long as he maintains his wits about him defensively and doesn't look lost on offense, I think that he's going to battle Heldt.
Do you think it makes it easier for him to get minutes, the fact that when he's on the court, he'll be on the court with maybe Sam Hauser, shooter, Rowsey, shooter, Howard, shooter? Do you think if it takes time for his offensive game to come, the fact that he's a big kid and he can play defense, do you think that makes it more likely for him to get on the court and forget the fact that he doesn't need to score right away?
Yeah, I mean, definitely from what I saw, he's already got the putback dunk down. He's got long strides and the ability to chase down a long rebound, which we're going to need. To be honest, I saw him pop a nice, sweet little 10-foot jump shot. Got some nice arc on it and splashed away. So
still high school.
Maybe a little upside there with the shooting. But I mean, if he just sticks to the rim and makes plays within 5 feet of the rim, then I think that he's going to be a huge component to this team and very critical for him to take at least 15 minutes away from Heldt.
Mohan, can you repeat his measurables? What is he?
They're saying he's 6'9", 245.
Draymond Green's 6'7", 230. He feels probably more of an Al Horford body type at that height, weight. Like that, he has the build.
He looks stronger, honestly. I was talking to neighbor Pete here, before, and I said that his body type kind of reminded me of Tyson Chandler, actually, who's one of the all-time meatheads of the NBA.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I'm sure Theo is smarter than Tyson Chandler.
And then I thought of the dynamic duo of Tyson Chandler and Eddie Curry, and my head just kind of slowly sank into my arms.
Hey, that's just great drafting right there.
I think Theo John's got a lot of potential for a quality men's underwear line, try the Theo Johns.
You're just thinking of Sean John.
Comfort in quality. No. He does look very svelte. I'll give you that. Which is
well, if you got Heldt and svelte, then you're in good shape.
and that, I wonder about his athleticism, because you talk about his putback dunks, but will his athleticism translate to the college game? I don't know. I haven't watched enough tape of him to kind of get a feeling for that. But I do think that, just kind of hearing what I have heard, or reading what I've read, that his tenacity is kind of what you want for a big guy like that. And so definitely his rebounding is going to be pivotal for this upcoming year.
We are a Catholic school. How about the big theology or the big theocrat? Ooh. We gotta name this guy. We gotta coin this.
I like big theology.
That. Yeah,
the big theology. That's still required, right?
We gotta watch some of his game and then see what it looks like.
John the Baptist.
Oh, there you go.
So let's keep moving along here and sticking with the theme of kind of the 4 or 5 spot. And Harry Froling. So Harry Froling transferred from SMU. He played 10 games for SMU, or logged minutes in 10 games for SMU last year, and was actually on the Marquette bench for most of last year, sitting out, not playing. So he will be on the court for us in mid-December for the first time. Just something that I wanted to throw. There is some tape of him, and I went back and watched the games that he played for SMU against the top 4 opponents that they played against during the time that he was there. So they played against USC, they played against TCU, they played against Pittsburgh, and they played against Michigan. So Pittsburgh and Michigan are actually common opponents that we shared with SMU last year. Froling logged 4 points against Pittsburgh, 2 offensive rebounds, 1 defensive rebound. Against Michigan, he logged 2 points, 2 turnovers, and a personal foul. So he was a freshman last year. He got some run, but he was definitely that wave of players coming in with 4 minutes left in the first half for 3 minutes just to give the guys a blow. So I think there's a lot of question marks around him now. Don't let anybody tell you that he is going to come in just because he's a big kid, that he's going to walk in and be a physical presence. I think there's questions around his physicality. Can he be tough? Can he go beyond what Luke Fisher did? And I think his offensive game is unproven. One thing that stood out to me from the tape that I watched, he doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger from 3. Mm-hmm. And they weren't going down for him in the tape that I watched. So,
in fairness, though, when he was at SMU, he was Charmin, pillowy, soft, B. Henry, Brian Henry soft.
So what's going to change?
Well, I don't know if you saw the pictures of him throughout the season, but right away, I guess Todd Smith was working him out, and I guess the guy dropped 30 pounds and was looking ripped even by the end of the season. So I think that he went through a pretty significant body transformation when he went from all that fried chicken and stuff down in Houston. He came up and had some bratwurst up in Milwaukee, and all of a sudden he was toned up. So I think
cops will do that to you.
Yeah,
just some good cops. That'll do that to you.
Yeah.
I've tried. It does.
I ate 5 brats tonight and already put on 2 pounds of muscle.
Those are two additional abs. That's all that is.
But in seriousness, it looked like when he came on campus, he was serious about becoming a part of that program, and there's not any chance that Wojo would permit someone to come in and just be a wimp on this team. Your scholarship would be revoked and you'd be transferring to Minnesota. So I think that the guy, he's definitely dedicated to the program, and I don't know if we can call him soft just yet until we see him bang some guys around in the Big East play.
Well, and if he does perform admirably offensively, it will be in a versatile way. You kind of know what I mean, because he does have the ability to shoot. Mike, you said that the games that you watched, he wasn't making them, but that's a pretty limited sample size, and I don't think he was really enjoying SMU all that much. So there might have been kind of a culture thing there that was affecting his play.
He hates Mustangs.
Yeah, he's not.
He's a Corvette.
Never really liked the Mustangs very much. He's more of a bird kind of guy, so I think that's going to fit him well. But his role on the team, I mean, when he does get eligibility, he's going to get some minutes on this team just because of the lack of size. And yeah, we're not going to need him to play well defensively. I mean, obviously. Curious to see what he can provide with his toughness. You guys already talked about that, but I want to see what he can do offensively, and if he can provide some versatility, both that kind of inside-outside guy that is so valuable on a college kind of oriented team.
Neighbor, I think you hit it. His usage rate, or even his playing time at SMU, was minimal, and his frustration with the offense is sort of understandable when you look at that ugly usage rate. He averaged 14 minutes a game, and that led to 4 points and 3 rebounds. I think given that, he is one of only 2 guys over 6'10" on the roster right now, with Heldt, he at least doubles that. And I think you'll see a lot more than when he was just an afterthought for Larry Brown and the Mustangs.
So we've got a few new kids who we still have yet to cover. One is Greg Elliot, the 6'3", 170-pound guard out of East Detroit, Michigan. He had offers from Michigan State, from Providence, from Toledo, from VCU, and UWM. But he committed to Marquette early in 2017. Mohan, I think you spent a little bit of time looking at this guy. He's listed as a shooting guard. Seems to have the talent to finish around the rim. He kind of seems to have I don't know if I'd call it a silky smooth touch, but he seems to have touch and ability to do impressive things with the basketball.
Yeah, I think the first thing you need to know about Greg Elliott is that he's a scorer. He's got a scorer's mentality. The guy put up some serious point numbers in high school for a pretty good team. I think that's the type of thing that you can expect from him, is some instant offense off the bench. And when you take a look at his game, I think that you see actually a lot of Juwan Johnson, his type of style, very kind of a rangy guy, long arms, smooth handle, the ability to slash, also the ability to shoot. And I think he's probably a better shooter than Juwan, probably even a better athlete than Juwan. His knack for scoring, I think, is going to be crucial, especially if Haanif continues to struggle offensively. We're really going to need some additional punch in the backcourt, because right now the rotation that we're looking at in the backcourt is Howard, Rowsey, Cheatham, and Greg Elliott. Pretty much that's it. Unless you count Sakar as an additional guard.
We'll see what he turns into.
We haven't really touched on Sakar at all. I mean, we've talked about all these other guys, but I don't expect him to really get minutes at the 2. I think he's more of a tweener forward than a tweener guard. So really, there's a major gap in our backcourt minutes that we need Elliott to fill, and I think that it's going to be exciting to see him jump in, but Wojo's shown that he's happy giving the keys to a freshman in the backcourt if he's capable of it. So looking forward to see if he can bring that to the table right off the bat.
So let's quickly touch on the we want to get to Sakar and mention him because Mohan, you brought him up. But let's also quickly move to Jamal Cain and Ike Eke. Jamal Cain, a 6'7", 190-pound guard, I guess you could say. He's one of these switchable types. Again, a Detroit product. Watching some tape on him earlier today and a few days ago. For a 6'7" guy, he's got handles, and he can get to the hole, and he can move his body in a way that you wouldn't expect from a 6'7" kid. Mm-hmm. I think the counterpoint to that is he looks really thin, and this isn't, he looks like a skinny high school kid compared to skinny high school kids that he's playing against. So I think one of the big things I'd expect from him is how much is he going to
Kevin Durant's skinny.
Jeez. Kevin Durant's also 7 feet tall.
Hey, how about Brandon Ingram? He's a skinny dude.
There you go. So it's like, can Jamal Cain's game, with the way he is now, transfer in a successful way, or is he going to have to build up some of his physical prowess over his freshman season?
So I mean, he's a 3-star. He's 6'7", and he averaged a double-double in high school. Like that means a lot.
And I believe he was number 2 in the Mr. Basketball in Michigan. I mean, he was one of the state's best players.
So despite, his build and his look, clearly the production's there at that level, at that elite high school level, which means a lot. I'm curious as to if he's given his, slider build and, out of all these switchable wings we're bringing in, the slider of, the three, maybe he's the Juwan replacement. Maybe he's the guy who's jumping into lanes, using his wingspan to interrupt, passes. Maybe he's the Juwan replacement. Maybe he's the energy spark guy. I don't know. That's just a hunch, but that's sort of how I view Jamal Cain in my mind.
We really haven't had athleticism at the small forward position in a while, I mean, he's kind of that type of athlete that we haven't
since
seen.
like Wes, basically.
Yeah, but even Trent Blackledge, we haven't had a long, lanky guy who can just inflict his athleticism on other people. I don't know if everyone has looked at any of his highlights, but he was in the Michigan State high school dunk contest, and I think he won the dunk contest by dunking over a row of 4 guys. So I mean, the dude has some insane hops, some insane athleticism, and when this guy gets the ball out in the fast break, which our offense is known to run, I think that he can put on quite a show, and I think that our guards will be happy to look for him because he does have the athleticism to beat guys down the court and finish.
And just watching a little bit of video on him that I did, when he gets the ball in gameplay, again, this is just high school tape, but he just looks like he knows what he wants to do. It doesn't look like there's much thought or much processing. It looks to come very natural. So that's the most subjective, anecdotal thing I've said today. But take it for what it's worth, because that does play into some of these conversations. The last freshman that we want to get to is a gentleman by the name of Ike Eke from Detroit Jesuit, where we have the Bear Man, a fellow Marquette alumni, also went to high school. What up, Bear Man?
What up?
Ike Eke is a 6'9", 225-pound freshman.
For anybody who has not seen that YouTube clip from the Mitten Classic dunk contest with Ike Eke, fucking watch it. He is a monster athlete. He's a 6'9" guy who could maybe replace some of Fisher's presence in the post, but that guy is a freak athlete, Blake Griffin-esque. I can't even think Jaylen Brown. I'm trying to think of young guys who.
Yeah, I can see Jaylen.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Jaylen Brown type thing where his game might not be fully well rounded, but he's just a freak athlete.
The guy's only been playing real basketball for 2 years.
Yeah,
he came to the U.S. early in high school. From Nigeria, I believe, and the kid's still learning the game.
Good Lord, we just learned how to pronounce his name 6 months ago, so he's clearly new to the game.
Other fun fact about his game is that he actually made 40% of his threes as a senior in high school. So
that's incredible.
Additional upside there in terms of the shooting. I think this guy, Eke, he's probably the biggest project out of all of our freshmen. Like Cain, he needs to spend some time in the weight room and develop in order to be able to handle some of these big guys in the Big East. His body's not ready for that, I don't think. But this guy definitely doesn't have a low floor. This guy has a high floor just because of his athleticism and his ability to rebound and block shots, and that's something that is sorely missed on this team right now, especially with the loss of Fisher.
Folks, if you haven't seen Ike Eke, if you think 6'9", and you think big guy down on the post, feed him the ball, that is not who this kid is. I would almost say I thought the Jaylen Brown comparison was really good, but then I just pulled up some more of his video, and he looks. I'm not a Jaylen Brown fan, by the way, Eric. We can talk about that later. But
we'll take that offline, Mike. We'll take that offline.
But he looks more athletic than Jaylen Brown, and it's really impressive to watch. So I agree with the weight room thing. That's true for almost any freshman. But he does have hops. He does have that ability to finish at the rim.
What do you think about you can't compare anybody to Giannis, but a Thon Maker, tall guy that plays like a wing.
What's the name of the big guy that was on Michigan's team last year who wore the shorts?
DJ Wilson.
Who was all over the place.
Yeah.
DJ Wilson. Kind of like him maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Not as built as DJ Wilson.
Not as built, and he might have better handles than DJ Wilson, but that's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
So
one thing I just want to wrap it up in terms of the recruiting class of the guys coming in. Obviously, the things that we need from them are we need them to absorb some of these minutes that we're missing. It's a fact that some of these minutes that we have open this year are going to go to freshmen, just because that's the way our roster is built. It's going to be interesting to see who gets it. But in terms of compatibility with our offense, the thing about Heldt and Fisher interior, in their rebounding is that they're a little slow of foot. These guys, these are athletic wing type forwards, who can.
They got some bounce. And that's the thing with our offense is we have guys chucking it from close to half court. Long shots create long rebounds, and Matt Heldt isn't getting a rebound out of the free throw line. But these guys have the ability to make that play, to run from under the rim out to closer to the perimeter to grab that rebound and use their athleticism, because those are the type of rebounds that are created when you have guys that shoot it from 30 feet.
We also talked earlier about how Cain had a great ISO ability, and that helped the offense so much last year. Mm-hmm. I think you see, and it's hard to tell right now, but you see three guys who, we lost 30 points from the offense from last year, more than 30 points from the starting lineup last year. You see three guys, 6'7" to 6'9" wings, who theoretically, one, if not all, have the ability to, play ISO ball and slash in or post up and score. Like, that's what we need. That's what we can hopefully find in one of these three guys. And, hopefully it's, even more advanced than what Cain could ever do.
At the very least, something that we talked about last year and the year before with Wojo's teams is just the lack of players, just simply numbers of guys that he can run out there, and the type of defense Wojo wants to run in terms of man-to-man, frantic defense, guys giving 100% effort. This finally gives us the manpower in the front court to chase guys around, to chase them all the way to the three-point line to play defense and get back, because there are infantrymen coming, there's a deep enough bench in order to potentially play the defense that Wojo wants. The only question that I have about our defense is our backcourt too short to guard other backcourts?
Is Wojo following the Brad Stevens model? Like, does he? I mean, there's so many parallels. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for as much as I bitched about the defense last year, Mohan, I think what you just said is right. But I think, I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. These guys, these freshmen, can make an impact on this team without being big scorers. We have, if they step up, great. I'd rather see Cheatham step up and these guys be able to fill in on defense, but really be able to fit into the defensive philosophy of this team without a big drop-off. Because when we put our second unit in and, Seton Hall or St. John's is able to score on our second unit so easily, that's where we can lose games. So if these guys can at least give solid physical minutes on defense, that's going to help this team a lot. Fellas, we're about to wrap it up here. Any final thoughts for a roster discussion? Of course, we're going to get into pods in the near future, folks, on the schedule, on coaching decisions, and kind of some of the more big picture conversations. We got all that coming soon. Eric and Mohan, any final thoughts on the roster?
Yeah, Mike, I think to me there's one final bottom line, and that's that we can have confidence in a strong backcourt that returns its most productive players, who are some of the most best shooters in the country, but the front court is full of massive question marks. Last year our defense blew. I mean, I think we can say that candidly.
That might be an understatement.
It was only our crazy offense that saved us and propelled us to the tournament, and I think that's very real. That's some real talk. But I'm guessing both sort of regress to the mean a little bit this year. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, if both do, but if the offense stays at that, somewhere near that mark and our defense increases only a small incremental bit, I think it's totally possible to see this team back in the NCAA tournament. There's just a lot of question marks right now, though, and I think that's what I'd end with. There's just more questions than answers right now.
For me, I think one of the biggest questions, that we've kind of harped on is who takes up that void on offense, and I think that it's going to be imperative that Haanif at least hold his weight and get back to what he did his freshman year, because we need at least, a solid chunk of the offense to just come from Haanif playing within the system and, making the open shots and taking the easy layups that are available to him. And by doing that, that takes up a valuable portion of our offense if he's able to just do that. The rest of it, I think that we're going to have to look for Greg Elliot and Jamal Cain to pick up some of the scoring slack. I think that they have the talent and the athleticism to do so. It's just going to be a matter of, are they going to be good enough to take pressure off of Rowsey and Howard in the backcourt? Because if those guys end up getting smothered and teams can just sit on them on defense, then our offense really won't end up being that good after all. So we're going to need someone to take the pressure off of them on the interior in order to keep those three-point shots open.
My bottom line before we close here is I think the two knowns on this team, the ones that we have the most clarity about, are Markus Howard and Andrew Rowsey. And that's going both on offense and defense. Those are the two players that we know what we're going to get out of. And that's not enough to be able to predict a successful season. We've got questions, as you just said, around Haanif. Can Sam Hauser take a step forward? What the hell are the freshmen going to look like? Can Matt Heldt continue his defense? There's so many questions that I'm actually a little more uneasy about this season than when we started this pod. So we're going to get into all that soon on future pods. We're going to talk about the schedule. We're going to talk about the coaching staff. We're going to talk more about the defense. And pretty soon we're going to start bringing folks on for interviews. And before you know it, the season's going to start. So, fellas.
And then we start impeachment proceedings.
That's right. I wasn't going to bring it up, but hey, it's what the people want. Let's see if we get through this season with 45 at the helm.
Camerata.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for listening to us again. Whether you are a returning listener or you are listening to this as a freshman at Marquette for the first time, or a sophomore, or a junior, or senior, thank you for listening. We're so glad to have you along for this ride this season. We think it's going to be a fun one, even if there are a lot of question marks. Fellas, thanks for joining the show, and we'll talk to y'all again soon on the Real Chili Podcast.
Go, 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 Marquette. Go, 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 go. Marquette, go, 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 go.
All right.
Bring out
all right, guys. I'm here, hold on, I'll be back. Let's debrief.